Today is a special day. It would be probably more special if I would install Fox fork into this bike, but I just received fork from dumper change and full service, so we will see how the assembly goes. Whole process simplified, grease all over the places, and we will be good to go to finish this up. Even though the headset caps has those notches outside, I'm adding a bit of a grease into the frame that those could stick at the bottom. And yeah, probably it's not necessary to do this, but because I believe it will eliminate a bit of a friction, plastic with carbon and with grease. I'm not sure how this mix works out, but we'll see. When adding bearings, I always try to be generous with grease, only because especially on this model, it becomes rusted quite a lot and quite soon. So just to make sure that it doesn't happen here, I'm adding grease basically all over the place. The headset caps has kind of a different topic to be covered. If you want to learn more about this, I will add a separate video in the description. Basically, there are cuts on the outside of those caps. They must point a different direction at the top and at the bottom, so keep that in mind when installing those. They shouldn't point to the same direction. If you want to have a slacker version, the top cap should face forward, while the bottom one rearwards, so towards the rear wheel, and that way you will have a smaller angle between the fork and the frame, so it can be positive and negative 0.6 degrees, and also there are caps with 0 degree offset. So yeah, these kind of a lot of things to cover, and I will leave those for a separate video. The reason being why I install grease into the top cap itself is because when the cables are around, and if you do this on the bearing itself and then try to assemble everything into place, it's very complex and everything becomes greasy, and yeah, not something you would wish to have. You can see that currently there is one unconnected housing, and it's actually for the rear shock. But other than that, I installed this fork with expectations that the handlebars holder could fit it at least a bit and don't drop it off, but it was unsuccessful. For parts which has a lot of tension when it comes to carbon and metal, in this case I'm adding some carbon paste inside the synchronous handlebars. And then the most tedious things begins. First of all, you have to apply everything in proper order, then make sure that nothing drops down, and at the same time you can see that it's not always possible to achieve that thing in the first go. And once you do that, you should be aware that both cables at the left and right side are not pushed directly, so make sure that they are kind of sitting on the side and not squeezed inside those areas. While keeping everything in place, in order to screw the top headset bolt, you have to put a bit of a grease inside the cover cap and then just screw the bolt for a headset. Because currently the bike is on the rack, I'm just adding a bit of a pressure to this bolt, and later down the road, once I install the wheels, I will make sure to do the last tightening, just because I want to feel whether there is any movement in the headset when it's on the ground or not, and it's actually the best way to do it. Of course, you can use the torque wrench, and it might be good as well, but at the same time it's just good to have that feeling that everything is stiff. I'm just installing the brake caliper, applying a bit of a thread lock to the bolts. I haven't done that quite a few times in the past, so now I'm just adding a bit of it in order to make sure everything stays in place. Because the lockout was disconnected, I am just changing the cable and adding a brand new one. Depending whether you have changed the cable or not, the procedure of tightening the lockout is as follows. First of all, you have to screw down the barrel adjuster at the lockout. Basically just leave 2 turns up to the end point. So just screw it inside and make sure that it's not fully tightened, but few roundabouts are left. Then before tightening the bolt at the lockout, just make sure that there is no loose cable at the barrel adjuster, because sometimes it just moves out of that barrel adjuster and you will have 2 loose cable and you will have to redo it again. And because when you screwing this bolt, you actually spreading the cable, so it's better to not to do that very often and do it in the first go ideally. The bike is down on the ground and we will tighten that headset to the spec. So first of all, I'm just applying some general pressure and then using the torque wrench. It's kind of around 5 Newton meters. I used to tighten it a bit more in order to make sure that there is no loose headset. Then applying the pressure on the stem bolts from both sides equally, so spinning one side then the other and not over tightening each before fully tightening down to 5 Newton meters. And the moment of truth, will it lock out with new damper installed? We'll see that. So we open loose, works well, half open, works decent, fully locked, and it works. We will see how long it will take. Maybe, hopefully this time it will be longer than previously. But other than that, the last remaining thing is left to cut the cable and we will be good to go rolling. If you are interested in how to set up the lockout, if you have some problems with SID, or you want to learn more about how to set up head tube caps, have a look at those videos.